You've been told your entire life that dogs see the world in black and white, but that's a complete lie. And what they actually see is so different from our reality that it changes everything about how we understand our best friends. Right now, your dog is looking at you through eyes that process light in a fundamentally alien way, seeing colors you take for granted as completely different hues, while detecting movement and contrast in darkness that you'd miss entirely. The black and white myth started in the 1930s when a researcher named Will Judy published a training manual claiming dogs had no color vision whatsoever, and for decades this became accepted fact, repeated in textbooks, told to children, embedded so deeply in popular culture that even today most people believe their dogs live in a grayscale universe. But here's what actually happens inside a dog's eye. They have two types of cone cells instead of our three, giving them dichromatic vision similar to a human with red-green colorblindness. They absolutely see colors, just not the same ones you do. Where you see a bright red ball on green grass, your dog sees a muddy yellow-brown object on yellowish-brown ground, essentially invisible. That expensive red toy you bought, to your dog, it might as well be camouflaged. The entire pet toy industry has been designing products in colors that dogs literally cannot distinguish from their surroundings, which explains why your dog sometimes walks right past that red con toy sitting in plain sight. Here's where it gets fascinating. Dogs see the world in a spectrum of blues, yellows, and grays. They're missing the red-green axis entirely. Their cone cells contain only two photopigments, one sensitive to blue-violet wavelengths around 429 nanometers and another sensitive to yellow-green wavelengths around 55 nanometers. Humans have a third cone that detects red wavelengths at 564 nanometers, which gives us that entire warm color spectrum from red through orange to some yellows. Without that third cone, dogs perceive reds as dark brownish yellow, oranges as dull yellow, greens as pale yellow or white, and purples can appear blue. But their blue vision is actually more sensitive than ours. They can distinguish subtle variations in blue shades that look identical to human eyes. That bright blue ball on green grass? To your dog, that's a vivid blue object on a pale yellow background, highly visible and easy to track. This is why professional dog trainers and competitive agility courses have started using blue and yellow equipment instead of the traditional red, because those are the colors dogs actually see with clarity and contrast. The difference in performance is measurable and immediate. This is the part most dog owners never consider. Your dog's visual system wasn't designed for identifying ripe fruit in trees or selecting the best vegetables. It evolved for hunting in dawn and dusk conditions, tracking fast-moving prey across varied terrain, and detecting the slightest motion in low light. While humans have about 6 million cone cells for color detection and 120 million rod cells for motion and light sensitivity, dogs have roughly 40 million rod cells compared to just 3 million cones. That's a massive shift in priorities. Their eyes are optimized for movement detection and night vision at the expense of color richness and fine detail. A dog can spot a deer twitching its ear 300 yards away in twilight conditions where you'd see nothing but shadows, but they might not notice a stationary red frisbee lying 5 feet in front of them if it blends into the background colors they perceive. Their visual acuity is also significantly lower than ours, estimated at 2075 compared to human 20C20 vision, which means something you see clearly at 75 feet appears to your dog the same as it would to you at 20 feet. They're somewhat nearsighted by our standards, but that's compensated by their motion detection, which is estimated to be 10 to 20 times more sensitive than human vision. But the real shock came when researchers started testing how this dichromatic vision actually impacts dog behavior and cognition. Studies using behavioral choice tests have proven that dogs can be trained to distinguish between colors within their visible spectrum, with remarkable accuracy, selecting blue objects over yellow ones or vice versa based on reward conditioning. They're not guessing. They're genuinely perceiving these colors as distinct categories. But here's the disturbing part. We've been communicating with dogs using visual cues they may not fully perceive the way we intend. Hand signals given while wearing red clothing against a green background might lack the contrast we assume they have. Colored training markers, boundary flags in yards, even the design of dog parks with red equipment on green artificial turf. All of it designed from a human visual perspective without considering how dogs actually see these environments. Scientists at the Russian Academy of Sciences conducted experiments showing that dogs rely heavily on brightness and contrast rather than color alone. But when color does provide useful information within their visible spectrum, they absolutely use it. One study found that dogs could distinguish between different shades of blue and yellow even when brightness was controlled, proving color itself matters to them. This changes everything we thought we knew about how dogs navigate and interact with the world. That viral video of a dog ignoring a red ball is not being stubborn or stupid. It genuinely might not see sufficient contrast to distinguish the ball from the grass. The reason dogs seem more enthusiastic about certain toys has less to do with the toy's function and more to do with whether it exists in their visible color spectrum with adequate contrast. Dogs playing fetch at the beach instinctively prefer balls that create contrast against sand and water. Blues and purples stand out, while reds and oranges disappear into the warm tones of sand. Service dogs and working dogs in law enforcement or search and rescue often wear bright yellow or blue vests for visibility, but civilian pet owners still dress their dogs in red or pink collars that provide poor visibility in many environments. The implications extend beyond toys and safety gear. Guide dogs navigate complex urban environments using their enhanced motion detection and contrast sensitivity rather than color-coded traffic systems designed for human trichromatic vision. They're responding to the brightness difference between illuminated and dark traffic lights, the movement of vehicles, and spatial positioning rather than identifying red versus green signals. Here's what actually matters. Dogs compensate for their reduced color range with superior low-light vision thanks to a reflective layer behind their retina called the tapetum lucidum. That's what causes eye shine in photographs, and it essentially gives them a built-in biological amplification system for available light. They can see in lighting conditions 1/5 as bright as what humans need for vision, which explains why your dog navigates confidently through your dark house at night while you're stumbling into furniture. Their wider field of view, averaging 240 degrees compared to human 80 degrees, gives them better peripheral awareness for detecting approaching threats or prey. Their flicker fusion frequency, how many frames per second they can distinguish as separate images, is higher than humans, which means they see older television broadcasts with visible flicker that looks smooth to us, though modern high refresh rate screens appear continuous to both species. Everything about canine vision represents a different set of evolutionary priorities: detect movement, hunt in low light, track fast-moving objects, and maintain peripheral awareness over identifying the ripeness of stationary fruit. The definitive truth isn't that dogs are visually impaired. It's that they experience a completely different visual reality, optimized for different survival challenges than the ones humans faced. They're not living in a black and white world, or even a dull, washed-out version of our world. They're living in a blue and yellow world with extraordinary motion sensitivity and night vision capabilities that we can barely imagine. The pervasive myth that dogs see in black and white persists because it's simple, memorable, and fits outdated scientific understanding. But the nuanced truth about dichromatic vision with enhanced rod cell density and tapetum lucidum reflection reveals something far more interesting. Dogs aren't deficient in vision, they're specialized for it. Their world isn't less colorful in any meaningful sense. It's differently colorful, optimized for the tasks their ancestors needed to survive as crepuscular hunters and pack animals. When you understand what your dog actually sees, everything changes. You choose better toys, create more visible training markers, understand why they miss objects you think are obvious, and appreciate that when they're staring intently at seemingly nothing in the darkness, they're probably seeing movement and detail that's completely invisible to your human eyes. So, what myth should we break down next?